Hey, so my name's Jason Lamonti, and Melissa had asked me to shed some light on the things going on in my life. Um, at this time, my wife had actually given her testimony, and so this complements her testimony. Uh, so if you haven't heard hers, you should go listen to her video. Um, so this was a time in our life where we were going to church. Um, and we were doing the things. We were still, I mean, we were still of the world. Um, so at this time, um, you know, I'm a lukewarm Christian. Uh, the church we were attending, I wasn't happy with, um, and that was creating some tension in my spiritual life. Also, at this time, I was dealing with a disease, Crohn's disease, which wreaked havoc on my body. And that is a whole nother testimony in itself. But because of that, I had a lot of hate. I was very mad at God for the things that were happening to me, the pain that I was enduring. uh, I mean, there's so much pain. I was on like 3 to 4 Vicodin, Percocet every 3.5 hours for years. Uh, the amount of pain I was in. But again, that's a different testimony. So at that time, I'm disconnected. I'm disconnected from my family. I'm disconnected from my marriage. I am just being in life. Um, at this time, I'm also in law enforcement, and law enforcement was um, it was very dark. It was very dark for me spiritually. Um, the environment was not healthy. For a lot of people that worked there, it was just not healthy. It was so dark. Constantly involved in, I mean, it's just sin, inappropriate talk, inappropriate conversations. I was defiling my marriage um, at work. That was just the environment. That's how cops cope. Uh, it's it was just a very bad place for me. So I'm disconnected from God. I'm still praying. I'm praying God to help us, you know, with with our marriage. At this time, there were some things that uh, that I was uncomfortable with. We had a friend, and the things I was noticing I was getting uncomfortable with between my wife. And so we had had some conversations about how I was feeling uncomfortable. And I don't know what that time frame was, but we had kind of discussed that. It was kind of blown off. And so one day I'm driving home and I'm about a mile. I know exactly where I'm at. I can picture everything as if it was just a vivid film. And I'm as I'm driving, this the spirit comes over me and just out of nowhere tells me that my wife is hurting, she's trapped, and that she's having an affair. And it's like in your mind, you're like, is this real? Like, it's almost as if it was out of body experience. It was supernatural. Um, the the compassion that I was filled with, you can't describe it. So this is a time that I'm lacking God's presence. I can't feel Him. I'm disconnected. I'm living worldly. I'm still seeking God in my selfishness. I mean, I was also living with shame and guilt myself, and I'll get into that. Um, So as God spoke to me to call Jenni, I'm like this is this happening? Like this can't be real. And so after I go with this dialogue with with God on what's happening, uh, I pick up the phone. I was prepared, obviously, and I asked Jenni if there was anything she needed to get off her chest, and I know that you had been having an affair, and I think her words were like, okay, so I guess we're doing this. She told me everything. Um, and of course it hurt. I was understanding. Um, I was understanding for more than one reason. Uh, but still, I was filled with the Spirit. It was not me. The words that came out of my mouth were not me. The way I responded was not me. Uh, it was just wasn't human. It was so much compassion and grace I've never experienced. So, obviously, at this time, we're working on our marriage. We're going through counseling. Fast forward 5 months, I go to this event called Men's Encounter, and it's just a weekend, 3 days of guys encountering the cross and just building a relationship spiritually. Um, these men gave testimonies. We had teachings, and these men gave testimonies, and I had never experienced grace in that type of setting. Like the things that these men had experienced in their lives were like, wow, my wife cheated on me. That's nothing. Like, but this is also a time where I had all this guilt, and I confided in somebody because I saw this grace. It allowed my heart to open. Um, I wanted to suppress this darkness that I had, this demon that was just eating me alive. Um, and so I confided in this gentleman, and he told me, well, you know what you got to do. So I go home. This was the first day in, really. It was the end of the first day. So we still had 2 days left. So I'm here 2 days of thinking, wow, what's this conversation going to look like? This is not going to be fun. Sick to my stomach. Dreading, trying to find peace in those moments at the event I was at, but also dreading what was going to happen. So I get home, basically, and I tell Jenni, I have to tell you something, that I've been unfaithful. And she knew what I was going to tell her. And of course, this is a very emotional time. I had been through a tremendous weekend of feeling God's presence speak to me, and so I was kind of given fresh breath. That guilt that I had, and that shame, and her forgiveness, it felt incredible. I thought she was going to divorce me, but I do know, by the grace of God, if I had told her prior to her situation, we would have been divorced. It was because she was allowed to see God's grace in all of us that love her. But it takes two. It takes two to make that decision to work things out. And we were hell bent on not being a statistic. And we're all vulnerable, and God knows where to attack us when we're vulnerable. Satan definitely knows where we are weak, Um, and he knows where it hurts for sure. But we refuse to be a statistic, and we told ourselves no matter how difficult the situation, that we would fight. We would fight for our kids and our marriage. So that is part of my story into my wife's story. I have many, many more testimonies of things that happened in my life, but there's been a lot of dark times, a lot of valleys, and a lot of hills. Man, I just hope that my story, and hopefully this may help one person to know God's mercy and His grace for all of us. So I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.